Hi everyone, and welcome to a special edition of the ECS Ask Me Anything series. My name's Ali Hill, and I'm a delivery consultant at ECS, and I'm going to be hosting the session this afternoon. Today, I'm delighted to host another partner special with cloud infrastructure specialist HashiCorp. And from HashiCorp, we're going to be joined by channel solution engineer John, and from ECS, we're joined by delivery consultant and HashiCorp trainer Jeff. So before I hand over to the panelists to introduce themselves, I'd just like to remind all of you that you can ask questions by using the chat box just below the YouTube video window. We'll be monitoring questions as they come in, and we'll do our best to put your questions to the panel throughout the session. And if we don't get to your questions, then please leave a comment on the recording in the video, and we'll get back to you with an answer. So after this very brief introduction, we'll dive right into about 40 minutes of questions and answers. So you can ask questions throughout the session at any time, if anything that the panel is discussing prompts an idea or anything that you would like to have answered. So we'll start off by introducing the panel, or allowing the panel to introduce themselves. John, do you want to start?
Yes, hi. Again, my name is John Boero. I'm from the States. I'm actually from Chicago. I'm 6 years in London now. 3 years at HashiCorp, covering, in my opinion, the best job at HashiCorp. I get to have the most fun because I get to deal with the partners on the partner ecosystem across EMEA, and we have the most fun of any organization within HashiCorp. So thanks for having me. Happy to join.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining. Jeff, how about yourself?
Hey guys, my name is Jeff Hemmen. I'm originally from Luxembourg. Like Ali said, I'm a delivery consultant at ECS. Don't particularly love the job title, but do love the job. I have been on implementation projects with Hashi technologies on kind of solution architecting projects. And like Ali said, I've also delivered training for Terraform Console and Vault so far. So yeah, ask me.
One of very few people in the world who can do all three of those, by the way.
There you go. We've got the ideal panel for this session in, because you can see that we've got a lot of knowledge in regard to HashiCorp solutions. So I'm personally looking forward to learning a lot more about HashiCorp and the HashiCorp and ECS partnership throughout this session. I'll start off with an introductory question for John. I just want to ask you, why might people know HashiCorp, and can you give us some background on the work that you do and who you work with?
Absolutely, yeah. So we go back to 2012. Mitchell Hashimoto and Armand Dadgar co-founded us. They were contracting in the Bay Area, West US, and then realized that they ended up dealing with quite a few VMs frequently, and they needed some automation around that. So they actually developed Vagrant from scratch, right? A couple of Ruby scripts that kind of evolved into a community on the open source and GitHub repos. That became the basis for a company. And then every product that they designed from there is what we have today, right? Our own cloud maturity, so to speak. So if you've used Vagrant going back a couple of years to get some VMs up on your MacBook, that was all well and good. If you're now doing the cloud and doing complex collaborative cloud deployments, you're probably using Terraform, which is, in my mind, a successor, a progression from Vagrant. And we also have some traditional services products and tools like Vault, Nomad, and Console, as we mentioned in the trainings as well. So we have a pretty diverse and growing stack right now, and we have as well 2 fairly new additions that I think we might talk about later as well. So if you've used Vagrant, Terraform, Vault, Nomad, Console, any of those, or heard of them, you've been using HashiCorp bits. So pretty common these days.
Cool, that's great. So Jeff, based on what John said, what is it that you enjoy about working with HashiCorp products as a consultant?
Well, I'd have to say, so like John said, the idea of HashiCorp really came out of a real need that the founders saw actually out there in the world, and that is still the case nowadays. So when I use HashiCorp tools, they solve actual problems that we have, and in an actual secure and scalable and user-friendly manner. So when I go on a project and I either advise a client that they might benefit from using HashiCorp technologies, or they've already decided that they want to, and I help them implement them or figure out how they want to implement them, I feel like I never have to compromise. I can always achieve the actual workflow that is most beneficial to the customer by using the HashiCorp technologies in the way that they're meant to be used. Obviously, sometimes you have some idiosyncrasies left, right, and center, so you will have to do a couple of hacky things. But at the core, you don't have to compromise on how to use the technologies in order to get an actual usable effect. And if you compare that to, I'm not going to name any other technologies, but oftentimes people use other technologies because they're the most popular ones, or they're the ones that you have a support contract with. And you kind of have to misuse them a little for them to meet your use case. And so far, I've never come across that with HashiCorp technologies. They're actually well thought through, well designed, and well documented for the most part. So usually a pleasure to work with and get stuff done the right way.
Yes, I could caveat that. So a lot of our technologies are led by engineers, not led by marketing or product teams sometimes. So we will often see functionality arrive in the code before there's documentation around it. Just yesterday, actually, we had a scenario where another partner was talking about integrated storage in Vault, the simplified way of deploying Vault. And they had a problem. I can't do this in the cloud. I need to add this feature to it. They actually were willing to volunteer a pull request and add code to Vault. And I asked around, I looked, and sure enough, in the code was an undocumented feature that they added last week. And you often will find that with us. We are very much, I don't want to say agile in the sense of enterprise agile, but our engineers often will think of a feature, gather in a group of 3, approve it, and run a beta in one of the new beta releases within days, right? Even at some of our internal meetings, and we talk about now the HashiCorp cloud platform that launched, which is managed instances of our services products like Terraform Cloud and Console, Vault, etc. And that was originally presented by Mitchell Hashimoto, our founder, on essentially like a napkin, on a bar napkin, a bar serviette drawing. He got up in front of a slideshow and presented almost a MS Paint drawing, like, this is what the UX is going to be like, let's make it. And now it's launched, it's live. It's amazing the kind of rapid turnaround we see on these things. And also he's gotten up in front of a crowd and run a new feature and said, yeah, I just built this on my MacBook 2 hours ago. So we are that happy blend of really developer oriented and API first all along the way, so that you can customize anything any way you like. And we talk about our HashiCorp Tau, our mentality internally. Things should be disposable, things should be composable, right, and extendable. So you can add plugins to a certain feature. You don't have to buy a full stack to use one of the products. You can just pick and choose whatever you want, a la carte. And also my favorite one, pragmatism, right? So if it doesn't solve a problem, doesn't make your life easier, why bother? So we won't develop anything that's going to slow you down. And you don't have to use anything, again, in the stack if you're happy to use your own solution. So piecemeal wise, I think it's a great way to build not just an open source following, but obviously enterprise fan base as well.
That sounds great. So we've obviously spoken there a bit about the culture at HashiCorp and why Jeff as a consultant enjoys using the tools. So I'll go to John first with this question, but what does the ECS and HashiCorp partnership look like, and what benefit does this bring to both of us, to both parties?
Oh, absolutely. Good question. Now, HashiCorp is a software company and based in the Bay Area. And in fact, going back 3 years, I was the second solution engineer on the ground, if you don't count one of us that moved back to the US. How do you cover all of Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asia with 2 people, right? First of all, we don't have services. We don't have long-term teams of people that show up and guide you through your journey. We have the product, we have use cases, we can demonstrate, we can set you up with an implementation and install it, and then happily show you how to use it. But people often want services. They want that long-term extended hand-holding. And we could never reach that scale without partners, right? So ECS, especially in the UK, has helped us grow out and be able to not just say, here's your software, good luck, but here's your software and here's someone to help you along the way, and make sure that we don't come back in a year to review how you're using it and you're sitting on the shelf, right? Shelfware is our biggest problem, not our biggest problem, but our biggest fear. We don't want people to decide to go with the software and then come back later and find out that they've not taken full advantage of it. So ECS has been a great partner helping us out along those guidelines, and especially with the trainings as well. We have, I'll be honest with you, I thought when I joined the partner network that it would be easier than the customer network because we'd have fewer partners than customers. And we honestly have something like 4 or 5 partner inbounds per week. Everybody wants to be a partner. Most of them want to learn services. They want to, be partners and get the relationship with HashiCorp so they can deliver our products. A few of them want to be trainer partners. They want to actually do the trainings in their area, and even fewer subset of those are capable of delivering the training, right? So we would not be able to train people in an area in essentially not just the UK but Europe as well without ECS. So it's been instrumental over the years, helping us spread the word and obviously helping us scale as we built out some of our own team. So I used to love the travel. I used to love that I could get a POC prompt in Prague and then be out for 3 days and see the world. But guess what? I'm leaving all of my customers in UK unattended. So the partnerships are much more of a customer relationship booster for us, and it's been a really good relationship along the way.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. So from ECS's point of view, firstly, we're flattered, but also, yeah, we are a HashiCorp partner, but we're not only a HashiCorp partner. So we're partnered with other companies as well, and I can give you a rundown on this later. But so I think we're perfectly suited to avoid what Johnny called shelfware. So we actually pride ourselves on what we call enablement. We go into a customer situation, we have a look at their actual need, and see how we can actually help them with their use cases and actually bring business value in there. And that might mean use HashiCorp across the board. It might mean just pick and choose a couple of Hashi tools and integrate with what they already have, or integrate with other software that we may or may not be partnered with. And so to touch on what Johnny said in response to the previous question, the kind of pluggability and integratability of the Hashi tool stack. I mean, everything is basically API calls and JSON payloads. So it's really integrated. It's really easily integrated with anything else. If you have like a service desk solution that can make API calls, that can have a webhook, you can now probably integrate it with other HashiCorp tools and vice versa.
Well, yeah, and you're right. Not just HashiCorp tools, but nothing is more disturbing as a solutions engineer facing a customer when you spend months and months learning the HashiCorp tools inside and out. You show up, you do a demo, and they say, "Great, how does this integrate with Jenkins?" That's the definition of an SI. Solutions integrators are able to put together multi-vendor relationships and say, yes, this tool goes together with that tool. I'm not here to be a Splunk expert and tell you how to analyze our logs or analyze our events or whatever log aggregator or observability solution you have or continuous integration solution you have. I hate to say I'm not ever going to be an expert in all of those, but to have a partner that's in the middle, a neutral partner like that, is a great way to bridge that gap. So yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder, but you're absolutely right. The multi-ISV relationship is important for ECS.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you mentioned it there, Splunk. We are, for example, ECS is partners with Splunk. We're also partners with CloudBees who do Jenkins and all sorts of things. So we are perfectly situated to come in and say you can integrate with this and that and the other. Here we would recommend using the enterprise level because of these features or because you have these requirements in terms of compliance and governance. But here you can opt for the open source thing, and we can actually help you integrate that with your existing automation tools, so you don't need to spend money on this unnecessarily, and so on. So that's how we as ECS can bring value to the partnership. But obviously, it's really, really valuable for us as well because we get access to to people like Johnny. So if we have a question, for example, we're on customer side and they ask us a question, how does this, that, or the other work, or is this a feature that could possibly come in the next months or years? We can turn around and literally in the course of minutes sometimes just ping people at HashiCorp, and then Johnny says, well, actually, I think you'll find this is already in the code. It's just not documented yet. And then
that's exactly how it happens after a couple of minutes of frantic Googling and searching on my side. Yes, 100%. I hate to say keeping up with our own products has become so difficult because there's now 6+ of them effectively that I have to keep track of. That it's always a search. Your Google foo and your GitHub foo is always going to come in handy. But yeah, and also we provide. The partners get licenses, right, for all of the enterprise products, especially in an open source world. Nobody should make it difficult for you to get a trial or see a POC or a demo of an enterprise edition, right? If open source companies make it too difficult to actually see the value of an enterprise sale, then nobody's going to bother. They'll stick with open source. So again, I can only scale so far as a few demos, a few workshops. Maybe people want to learn basic Terraform with a half-day workshop that we do. I can't always scale that out, right? So we enable ECS to do any demo, any one of our enterprise products, and also to get an introduction with our sales team without having to wait until we're available. ECS can handle all of that full end-to-end kind of acquisition stage, which is great. Sorry, didn't mean to steal your thunder.
No, so good. This is meant to be a dialogue rather than just a series of monologues. Ali, do we have any questions yet? I'm happy that we've probably rambled as much as useful for this question so far.
I've got some more questions lined up. I was just going to make a comment on the point about how easy it is to integrate the HashiCorp tools with some existing tools. So on the project that I'm working on just now, we've got API, we've got webhook set up to Teams. We've got information coming back from Terraform Enterprise to Confluence, and we're also triggering and getting information back using TeamCity. So our CI/CD pipeline, we're getting information to and from Terraform Enterprise using API calls as well. So I suppose it's testament to the fact that because we've got knowledge in the different tools, we can easily link that and get the information we need in the places we need. And it is really easy to integrate that way. So I don't know if you wanted to add to that, if we want to go into the next question.
Go ahead, fire away.
Cool. I was going to touch on the training aspect. So I think, John, at the beginning you mentioned that Jeff is one of the few people that's a trainer in is it Consul, Vault, and Terraform. What is it that you both see as the main benefit of that training? What use cases, I suppose, do people who want to train, and what is the reason for taking that training, and what did they get out of that?
Sure. So, well, as Jeff mentioned, actually, a lot of our products are decently documented, some less so, right? As I said, there will be features that make it into an API that aren't even documented for another 2 or 3 months. And then getting into the training material is the next level, right? Because our education org follows that. And if I were to keep up with not just the new features of every product, but the new training content of every product, and be able to deliver that in potentially multiple languages, I would be Superman. I don't know, effectively, right? That doesn't really help. The overlap there, the requirements are just too much for a single person usually. So obviously, if I go in the evolutionary order of HashiCorp products, right? We talk about provision, secure, connect, run. So we go Terraform for provisioning your cloud, your multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, securing that with Vault on top. And Vault is going to be essentially the DHCP server for your secrets along the way. Once I'm generating and securing those secrets, I actually will use Console to connect. And as I mentioned, none of this is codependent as such, right? So some people will take Terraform and Vault and stop there. And along those lines, a lot of the trainers will take Terraform and Vault and stop there. And when I say a lot of trainers, there really are not many. I can count on one hand the number of trainers that we've had in Europe over the last year. I guess there's a few more that have been trainers over the 2 or 3 years, but there's not very many. And especially now with virtual events, you don't have to always be on site. Obviously, COVID changed that. So one trainer can effectively cover a swath of time zones around the globe and do not just a training in Canary Wharf, but do a training from the UK down through Israel, down to South Africa, all at the same time, right? So when you have that few people, again, counting on one hand the number of people we have who can do this, that availability is critical. Rather than just being in a room with 50 people, which again, some customers still will do. Some customers will still require you to be on site for a private training, and that's fine. We do that too. ECS does that as well. You have the potential then to take that one person who knows the 3 products, multiple languages, by the way, which you mentioned last time, Jeff, right? And to be able to cover that spectrum all at once is super valuable because we can't do that ourselves at HashiCorp. And again, if I take a customer that I've demonstrated the value to with a POC or a workshop, because again, I don't do multi-day trainings. I do them for partners, but I don't do them for customers because that's not our job. We have the training partners for that. So we give people a taste. We give a half-day workshop. This is an introduction to Terraform, introduction to Vault, introduction to Console, which some of those products are different depending on the cloud or the environment. So the cross multiplier, the cross product of those environments quickly gets difficult to manage. And again, we're not able to do those multiple days, whereas the trainers are. So if you need more than just 4 days crash course, 4 hours crash course on Terraform or Vault, you need an in-depth assistant, someone you can ask questions to, then Jeff is essentially one of the best options we have, right? And ECS is able to cover those trainings definitely outside of the US time zones, which, as we're based in the US, people don't always think about that back home in the US. So it's been super valuable to be able to have a customer take the workshop.
That being said, I've been asked to deliver training in a US time zone before.
You have?
I was like, really? But you are US based. Well.
Just run with it. Just run with it. Yeah, that's strange because I do some of the partner workshops and boot camps, and I'll have people on from India, from Dubai, and from the US. I guess they're maybe working shifts. They're using their evening or something. But it's an interesting world we live in when it's virtual and people can attend from anywhere. But yeah, I mean, the US is particularly grumpy at getting up at 2 a.m. to do a training. So that's helpful to have.
Yeah, so agree with all of that. And I suppose the other question, maybe the kind of preliminary question, is why have in-person training in the first place? Because there is a lot out there, more and more, on HashiCorp Learn, which is learn.hashicorp.com, where people can, at their own pace, do small tutorials and learn at their own pace. But from personal experience, sometimes you just want to have a day dedicated where your boss says go on that training, so you don't have a bad conscience for switching off Slack or Teams or HipChat or whatever it is you use, and actually just focus for a day, not have any other distractions. And you don't need to worry about like provisioning your own environment. Like if you want to play around with Console, you may not have access to 3, 4, 5 different servers in 2 different networks that you can play around with in order to set up some sort of service mesh over one and stuff. If you do one of the trainings, we provide an environment for you. So you just show up. You need to make sure you're allowed to SSH, and you're allowed to have a look at web pages, which has been a problem before, especially delivering training remotely when people are like on the VPN of their bank or something. They're not always allowed to SSH out, but it's usually there's a way around that. But basically, you don't have to worry. You just show up. You have the time carved out. You know you can completely focus on this. And depending on how we deliver training, if it's public training, then it's mostly just going to be what's on the agenda. But if it's training for a specific company that sends half a dozen to a dozen people, we're able to kind of tweak the descriptions and the use cases a little. Or what we've done in the past is if there is specific topics that just aren't covered in one of the courses, we can actually offer custom workshops. So I've had a client a couple of weeks ago who I think they did Vault 101, Vault 102, and then a custom Vault workshop where they wanted to cover a couple of use cases, perhaps relating to Kubernetes and some other authentication method. So that's something that you don't necessarily get in that way from the online trainings, especially with the kind of feedback, and if you get stuck, having someone there to help you. And if there is any kind of more in-depth questions, which I always enjoy those when they come up in the training, I will always write them down and look them up. You know, do my what did you call it, Johnny? Google Foo and GitHub Foo. Google Foo and GitHub Foo. And if that doesn't yield anything, I'll just go on Slack and I'll use my Johnny Foo to figure out the answers to those questions, which sometimes they're really interesting, useful questions, and sometimes they're just kind of nerd technicalities that don't have any bearing on the functioning of the software at all. But I enjoy those more, if anything. So yeah, those are things that that are a reason for the training rather than just using what's out there already.
Yeah, you always give me the most interesting questions. If I have a Slack message from you, it's either about a product, it's something new, some new interesting question that I've never had to answer before, which is actually good for me too, because then I learn more. But number two, it's about either a game night or something, or we do during lockdown. We
do need to get on that.
We did partner game nights occasionally as well, and I've never played Among Us before, but I've been stabbed in the back several times since. So yeah, it's always interesting whatever Slack messages I get from Jeff.
On that note, if you are a HashiCorp partner, get in touch with Johnny and join us on the next game night.
Yeah, you can stab me in the back and then pretend it never happened.
Only literally never figured it.
So speaking of which, and I just had an idea, unless there's another question. Are we good on questions?
Go for it.
Okay. I would pose a challenge to you. I'm not going to stab you in the back, but given that Boundary is new, and I think we're going to probably talk about Zero Trust eventually. Boundary is, if anybody's familiar, a relatively young cloud-oriented identity-based PAM solution, right? So a traditional PAM solution or privilege access management platform is something that maybe you have sudo in a Linux environment, but one single person isn't always allowed to use sudo. So you're not always allowed to get elevated privileges. So you're going to have a PAM solution around that, which is either an approval system or multi-factor or extra security around elevated privileges. And now we talk about VPN, for example. VPN is early Zero Trust. Say, okay, I'm going to work from home. My network connection is going across multi-public lines, BT, Verizon if you're in the US, or T-Mobile, Orange, EE, whatever connection is going across, you don't know if that's secure, right? So VPN encrypts everything from your home to the office or to the data center, to the cloud, whatever you're using. Now, that's all well and good, but once you reach that other endpoint in VPN, all bets are off, right? Your public traffic is essentially in plain text again. So you never know if somebody in outside your own network is able to compromise you. So this concept of zero trust means I need full end-to-end, not just encryption, but routes and routing and routing. Sorry, my American's coming out. And so boundary, I guess in the concept of that console is our service connectivity, right? Our service discovery or service connectivity to let applications talk to other applications. And as Jeff will say, it's in the industry, it's one of the simplest to configure because it's self-contained. You just have the one thing that you need to deploy and configure. Boundary is a step further to say, oh, what about people to applications? So that was a traditional PAM role. Say, I need this IP address. I have permission to do it. Maybe record my session if the policy or governance or some actual compliance standard requires it. Record that session, and then I have an audit trail. In a world where you're in the cloud or multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, IP addresses change every couple of hours, maybe. That doesn't work, right? We don't say this IP address is where I'm going to connect, because you might not know what the IP address is. So Boundary is our now cloud-oriented securing people to applications app, and it may sound really complicated, but right now at least it's in early stages, and it is pretty simple. So I would challenge Jeff to before Boundary goes enterprise, which will probably be a while. It's, again, only open source right now.
I don't know what's coming yet, but I was afraid you were going to say before this AMA is over. Yeah,
before in the next 3 minutes, you will show a demo of Boundary. No, we have a few people doing demos of Boundary, but if you were to be the first Boundary trainer, I think that would be amazing, because Boundary is supposed to go big. And given that it potentially is replacing VPN and traditional PAM, I have a lot of customers asking about that are going to need training. So in the future, probably a year away, no rush. I would love to see you be a trainer for Boundary as well. We'll see. And Nomad potentially as well. Nomad is for those who aren't familiar, our scheduler and orchestrator, almost like our HashiCorp OS, I would say. And again, Jeff, you're pretty versed in that, right? I don't think you do trainings on that, but you know it pretty well.
No, actually, no. I've used Nomad very little. I apologize for any background noise you may hear.
I can't hear a thing. I think you're fine.
That's good. Yeah, I've barely used Nomad at all because, like I said, we are very open to customers wanting to mix and match, and there is a competitor, which I'm not going to name, but it's the one with the steering wheel. What's it called? What the steering wheel?
The Greek one.
Yeah, the Greek one. So most customers will opt or have already started implementing that one. So I haven't sadly had much opportunity to play around with Nomad, but I am well excited about Boundary. And I would
spar with that. Can I spar with that?
Go on.
Okay, all right.
We do have a question. We've got.
Oh, you do have a question.
So we've got a question on. Just because going back to what you're talking about, because you're talking about Boundary, someone's interested in what the uptake's been like for Waypoint and Boundary. I don't know if you want to lead on that and talk about
the future, absolutely. So it's interesting. When I heard about these in planning, in fact, it was probably 2-3 years ago. I forget which year now, because it's been 2020 is a wash. We were at our internal conference, our HashiCorp Exchange in San Diego, and there was rumor within the Vault team of saying, okay, well, people use Vault to generate SSH credentials, right? And not traditional keys, which have no expiration, right? If you get a key copied for your house, that's good forever until you change the locks, right? SSH keys are the same way. And a lot of people struggle with that when they see Vault does certificates in addition to keys, right? SSH server has always supported certificates, which are essentially like a magnetic key card instead of a physical key. They have an expiration. Your hotel key card stops working because it has an expiration. SSH credentials issued by Vault, same thing. This key will self-destruct or stop working in an hour or a day. So people use that for SSH access to secure production environment. And they may even go a step further and say, I need an MFA token or, again, group approval from my management to get that. But the one thing it has been missing is session recording. Right, so you get that SSH certificate, you go do your task, your service ticket, whatever you need, your Ansible playbook, and then it's gone. But there's no record of what you did, and there's no controlling what limitations you had, right? So there's no ability to monitor that. So Boundary has a lot of interest because it's almost like an approved watchdog. So you're going to allow someone to connect. You're going to block certain commands being run, either by SSH or by a database connection or whatever plugin and connection you're using, and you're going to fully audit trail that. So we have quite a bit of interest in that, and that they were back in San Diego looking at almost buying a solution. They were all evaluating actually buying an outside project to just fill that need for us. And in the end, I think they made the right call. I think they when they said, let's build it from scratch. We have Vault, we have the skills internally to build it, and we know exactly what the requirements our customers want. So let's build our own. And even before it launched, people heard rumors about it. People were asking about it. And now that it's taken off, again, there's a lot of interest to the point where people are actually subscribing to our testing channel. So they get the betas during the builds, which is open source only. Waypoint, on the other hand, we always knew would be built from scratch. Came from the brainchild of some of the CI/CD implementers or users in HashiCorp, and again, is simple in that it's just HCL-based deployment across multiple environments. So when I heard about these two projects, I thought, okay, Waypoint sounds like a CI/CD, more so just a CD tool, continuous delivery. Boundary seems like a SSH and potentially VPN replacement. So which one is going to be a money generator, revenue generator for us? And I actually was backwards. I thought Waypoint would be more valuable. But the funny thing is Waypoint is intended to be open source only, right? So Waypoint is growing in interest, is growing in the community. It's not something that we're pushing heavily in our sales teams because, again, it's open source like Packer and Vagrant. If you like it, you use it, great. You can use it in the enterprise. The one thing it's lacking is an enterprise support option, right? There's no real icing on the cake, so to speak. If you buy enterprise, you get what you get. So we see a lot of people using it and the community loves it, but we're not pushing it ourselves like we are Boundary, because Boundary is intended to be an enterprise offering. So we're going to add in enterprise level features, things that top banks and top finance techs and also small medium businesses can take advantage of, but pay that little extra for not just the support but the extra features. So both are very early stages. In fact, one of the things I like to do with the engineering team is I'm involved with the packaging, and the fact that we have RPMs and Debian repos finally that can deploy these really quickly. A lot of these applications are meant from the developers to be deployed in containers. But don't forget that enterprises can't always use that, right? So we are just now putting out a final versions of the packaging that you can just install, run, and deploy these things almost as if you were in enterprise already. So I think in the next 6 months, and I don't know their official roadmap, we're going to see a lot more interest in Boundary, not just from the outside, but from ourselves pushing it, because people are going to have the option to invest in it and buy enterprise support. Does that answer the question? Maybe a little too long-winded.
It does, yeah. I think it does.
It does, perfect, thank you.
Let us know if it doesn't. But no, that's great. We've got 5 minutes left of the session. So John, I'm going to leave it up to you. Do you want to respond to what you like to respond to Jeff with, or do you want to talk about what's next
Go ahead.
for HashiCorp?
You can. I should shut up and let Jeff give it a try.
No, you were going to defend Nomad.
Oh yeah. I was going to spar. This is my problem with Nomad. So I am a Kubernetes user. I am an OpenShift user. I'm ex-Red Hat. I understand both of them have great use cases. My trouble with ourselves, with HashiCorp, is that we suffer the same problem. We always compare Nomad to Kubernetes. And again, that implies that it's a container orchestrator. And yes, that's one thing that it does, right? In my mind, and I see people using Terraform all the time to deploy a lift and shift kind of methodology. Terraform, give me 5 VMs, install these packages and start these systemd services, right? That's not what you should be doing with Terraform. Terraform provisioners in particular are last resort options. They're not as consistent, they're not as reliable. And if that instance or that infrastructure falls down, nothing is going to recover that service, right? You don't have to go to Kubernetes for that. You don't even have to use containers for that, but you can use Nomad to schedule and orchestrate local services in addition to containers, right? So in my mind, and I wrote a long-winded blog post about this, it was kind of evaluating Nomad, not just against Kubernetes, but also systemd. And everything needs to be scheduled at an individual server level with systemd. And this is how people are using Terraform, and they're having a bad experience. And this is because that's not what systemd was for, right? So you don't have to make the leap to Kubernetes. You don't have to make the leap to containers. But if you are struggling with infrastructure and classic services, take a look at Nomad. It's a nice way to bridge the gap. And that's not your fault, Jeff. That's what we've probably ground into your brain as well, is that it's a Kubernetes competitor. I wouldn't say that. I would say, in my mind, it's more competing with the system scheduler and systemd. But I have my own way of using it as well. So interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, rebuttal.
No, I mean, as a perfectly valid argument, I was thinking of what other technologies could tackle that, and there's nothing really elegant you could do. You could, install something like Puppet that makes sure that service is always up, but then you can't really load balance across instances, and you need to have something that runs Puppet regularly. So now you need to have some sort of cron job. So you're absolutely right. I suppose the problem is just that either companies tend to fall into two kind of categories, either the progressive ones that are very likely to try and have everything container based, and therefore very happy to Kubernetes everything, and obviously over Kubernetesing, which is a word as of now, is an actual problem. Or they're a bit more conservative, and like you said, some enterprise companies may not have the ability or the kind of security approval to do containerization just yet. And they are also likely, I suppose, to struggle to approve and integrate in a useful, as intended manner, something like Nomad. But point duly taken.
We'll make that your next task. You don't have enough on your plate right now. We'll give you all 5 enterprise products potentially to have to train on. No. Yeah, interesting. Next game night, you can stab me in the back for that one. I give you full permission.
It's no fun if you get permission. Any more questions, Ali?
We're at the end of the session, unfortunately. I was going to just ask John just to round off and just maybe talk about what's next for HashiCorp, where the focus is going to be, and if there's any sort of hints that you can drop in.
Yeah,
the session.
Absolutely. So again, I mentioned, I guess briefly, zero trust, and this kind of concept taking the industry by storm. And it's nothing new, right? The concept of zero trust sounds negative in my mind. It's like, well, I want to trust. Like, no, you can't trust the network from out the door. In fact, so I have a new ISP as of last week, and they ran a cable to my door. Who's to assume that that line itself is protected? I don't know. I could be bugged right outside my door, right? Let alone be bugged at a big enterprise or with some malware on my own machine. So this concept of zero trust is really not just another DevSecOps or another mentality of operating. DevSecOps obviously is workflows and is some requirement and way of thinking. Zero trust is a concept that requires tools, right? Okay, well, zero trust is not, we're going to change the way we do things. Zero trust is we're going to make sure that we have the right tools in place to secure our connection end to end, whether that is with secrets from Vault, service connectivity with console, or people to service connectivity with boundary. So we're going to see these 3 products kind of come together really nicely, I think, in the next year, as people realize that they can't always trust their network connection. And especially when compromises and leaks and data fines, GDPR fines are in the millions per year, millions per incident even. These are going to be real worries for people, real risks that we have to mitigate. So I think that's the way it's going to be. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that gives people something to look forward to. But yeah, as I said, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for now. But I hope that everyone has enjoyed learning more about HashiCorp, learning more about the HashiCorp and ECS partnership and the benefits that brings. And I just want to talk about a couple of upcoming events. So in June, we've got HashiCorp are hosting HashiConf Europe, and registration for that is free for all HashiCorp community members. And the event's got product updates, technical workshops, presentations. We've actually got someone from ECS, Morgan Atkins, who's going to be presenting a session at HashiConf. So definitely go and check that out.
You know what? On that note, I'm going to drop this in chat actually, but there is a link. This is my countdown page. I always make a landing page for HashiConf, and it's 31 days now, 20 hours or something like that, and a couple of seconds. So yeah, have a look. To have a partner speaking at this year is especially rare. So ECS got another really good slot because they were asking only for customers this year. ECS is one of the few partners talking at HashiConf EU. So good job on that.
Cool. I'll drop that in the chat just now.
Quite the UI.
Yeah, that's my web-based slide deck platform that I use for HashiCorp decks. So hopefully it doesn't break anybody's system. CSS is a nightmare as well. But have a look, register. Even if you can't attend all of it, make sure to attend a talk or two. It's worthwhile.
Yep. And yeah, I suppose on the ECS side, we've got another Ask Me Anything session next week with another one of our partners, CloudBees. So we're going to be discussing all things Jenkins in that session. The session takes place at a slightly different time of 1 p.m. BST, so that's an hour later than usual for the people across different time zones. But the link for both of these events is in the description below, and I've put the link that John just shared in chat and in the chat for this video. So all that's left for me to do is to thank John and thank Jeff for joining us for the panel today. I've definitely learned a lot by listening, and thanks to everyone who watched live and put your questions into the chat as well, and also to those of you who are watching the recording a little bit later. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you very much for attending.
Cheers. Thank you, Ali. Thank you, Jeff. Cheers, everyone.
Take care. Have a good weekend.
Bye.